to the teams for making it to the final rounds. Today, team 126, which represents the petitioners, is going against team 100, which represents the defendants. The time distribution for 126p is 18 minutes for speaker 1, 18 minutes for speaker 2, and 4 minutes for rebuttal. Similarly, the time distribution for team 100 is 20 minutes for speaker 1, 15 minutes for speaker 2, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. If there's nothing else and no further questions from the judges, the petitioner team may proceed to submit its submissions, may proceed with the submissions.
I think we can start the rounds. Yes, petitioner speaker 1 is TC
126.
126.
Shall I proceed?
Yes, speaker 1. Co-judges, shall we start?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, please.
Yes, speaker 1, you can start.
A very good afternoon to the honorable judges. This is counsel for the plaintiff appearing in the case of iRoll Company versus Ishika. The counsel shall be representing team 126 as the plaintiff and thus seeks permission for addressing the honorable judges as your lordship.
Granted.
Much obliged. The plaintiff has humbly approached the Honorable Civil Court of Mante under Section 9 of the Civil Procedural Code.
Counsel, you
which
say
reads
that you have
as the
approached
court
which court?
shall have jurisdiction.
Counsel, you say you have approached which court? Counsel, your voice is
I beg your pardon.
your voice is breaking. Could you
Civil
please
Court of Mante.
which court have you approached under Section 9?
Your Lordship, Civil Court of Mante.
Okay. Counsel, please tell us under the civil judiciary hierarchy of courts, under which civil court have you filed this present case?
Your Lordship, the lower court.
I understand it is the lower court, but which lower court? Is it the district court or the courts below the district court?
District Court, Your Lordship.
Okay, counsel, if that is the case, could you please tell me the pecuniary limits of Mante?
Your Lordship, it is under the 2.5 lakhs. It is like allowed below 5 lakhs. So the present
No.
case which involves
There
case of 2.5
are
lakhs,
each
it is
stage of
definitely covered under that.
counsel. There are pecuniary limits for each rung of the ladder of the judiciary. And if I do not know whether the teams are aware, but there is the junior civil judge, senior civil judge, and then the district judge. So you tell me which is the judge before which this petition, this case is filed. And you also tell me what is the pecuniary limits for each of these judges, which gives them jurisdiction.
Your Lordship, if you allow, the council would like to exactly define those limits after.
No, that's the first primary concern from us. We need to have jurisdiction in the first place to even hear you. So please define the pecuniary limits first.
Indeed, Your Lordship. If you allow me just a few moments to look into.
Yes, please. You have all the time you have within the time fixed. Counselors, enough time is granted to you. Are you aware of the pecuniary limits? You can plead ignorance if you're not.
Your Lordship, the council is not able to recall it at the moment.
Okay, if that is the case, then the second query to you is this a commercial dispute or it's just a regular civil dispute?
Your Lordship, it's a regular civil dispute.
Okay, so how do we distinguish? Why does the commercial courts not have jurisdiction for this case?
Your Lordship, because of the amount which is this particular case involves is only about 2.5 lakhs.
So what is the threshold fixed for a commercial court in the jurisdiction of Mante?
Your Lordship, it is in around 2 crores. It starts from there, the first cap.
Council, the cap is 3 lakhs for the place of Mante and not 2 crores. And in the other states in India, also it is 1 crore, and that's not the threshold is not 3. Council, please move on to your first issue.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. So the council will be taking up the first issue, which is whether the contract between the two parties holds validity and whether there has been a breach of the same. And my co-counsel shall deal with the arguendo that even if the contract is considered void, the plaintiff is still entitled to recover compensation under Section 33 in Specific Relief Act 1933 and under Indian Contract Act 1872. With this, the council proceeds with her first issue, and she will put forward the contentions in threefold manner. Firstly, that there was a fraudulent misrepresentation on part of Ishika. Secondly, that there were sincere efforts made by the company to ensure the legality of the contract. And thirdly, that the contract signed between the parties on 20th April is valid. Proceeding towards the first sub-issue.
Ms. Counsel, I have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
On part of the defendant in the contract.
Counsel, my co-judge has a question for you.
Can you
Please
hear me,
stop.
Counsel? I'm so sorry.
Indeed,
to
Your
interrupt
Lordship.
you. Yes. You just said that there was a fraudulent impersonation on part of Miss Ishika. How do you substantiate or corroborate that? Because I have not come across anything which demarcates this fact.
Indeed, Your Lordship. So the defendant purposely asked the plaintiff company to conduct the interview via phone call. And this is more than enough to say that the council, even after going through the advertisement where it was mentioned that where it was mentioned about the eligibility of the people who could apply for it, she purposely wanted the interview to be conducted via phone call so that the plaintiff could not recognize and judge the age of the defendant.
Counsel,
Moreover, it was quite difficult even.
There's a lack of due diligence on part of your company because firstly, you should have done your research. You should have done a background check before entering into a contract. You are a responsible organization and it is your duty and responsibility both to check the people that you're entering into a contract with. So, and in today's days and age, it's very easy to get a copy of a unique identity like Aadhaar or passport over phone, WhatsApp, email, anything. So I don't buy your argument or I don't buy your submission that there was a false impersonation. Rather, I would say that there's a lack of due diligence. There's a lack of inquiry on your part.
Your Lordship, the council still feels that it was the duty of the defendant, even after going through the articles of association, that the company does not deal with minors. It was the duty of the defendant to break her silence and tell that she was not a minor. Moreover, looking at her experience, it was quite unlikely for the plaintiff to expect that she would not have gone through the article of associations, which is a public document.
Counsel, are you trying to tell that on adding on to the question by my co-judge, just because she opted for a telephonic interview, does that make her a fraudulent person? Your only element you say is she opted for a telephonic interview. How is that even because your contract was entered during the pandemic and it is but natural that we are even conducting these court proceedings virtually. So do you want to even make an argument that this is something fraudulent?
Your Lordship, even over the online medium conversations, it is very difficult to judge the age of the other party. Moreover,
why don't you take steps like my co-judge has rightly said? Why didn't you take Aadhaar and their ID cards? Why do you enter into such contracts without researching?
Just to add on to my co-judge's point, you mentioned that you expect a 17-year-old to go through your articles of association and to understand your policy in order to come out and say like, oh, I'm just 17-year-old. and why your VP doesn't question that? How old are you? It's a very simple question, right?
Your Lordship, the facts are quite silent whether there was a question raised during the phone call interview about the age. But definitely it was a duty expected. If after the advertisement, it was definitely a thing expected from the defendant to say it. Because if we look at the experience of the party, it was really highly
How do
unlikely
we
for
say
the
where the facts are
plaintiff.
silent on what the experience is of the petitioner or of the defendant?
Uh,
Please show the relevant paras of your fact sheet showing the experience of the defendant, please. Which para are you referring to?
Indeed, Your Lordship, in the moot proposition, para second,
Which line?
sixth line.
Yes, please read.
Sixth line, Your Lordship.
Please
Where it
read.
is said that she was it says that she was able to impress the vice president of the company with her experience and suggestions during the interview.
Counsel, that is a very vague argument. How do I, if I have certain experience without my age as a factor, then that should not be a reason that she's downplayed something or she's fraudulent. She might have such experience. Do you have anything to say her experience is wrong or her information given is incorrect? Did you take a consent form which said that she is 18 years? Did she sign a document saying she's over 18?
Your Lordship, the facts are again silent over the exchange.
Similarly, if that is silent, then how do you conclude that just because she says she impressed your VP with her experience, is that the only reason that you'll conclude she's a major?
Your Lordship, in arguendo, the counsel would like to submit that even in that case, there would be a negligent misrepresentation. And
Counsel,
even in
there
that
is
case,
some
the
error with
contract
your
would become
network.
void.
Your voice is completely lagging at a number of times. Could you switch off your camera while arguing because of the same? Yes. Yes, counsel, please continue.
Your Lordship, I was submitting that in arguendo to that, the counsel would still submit that there is still a negligent misrepresentation on her part for the
How
same.
so?
Your Lordship, because of the clarification that was given, neither did the company, that is the counsel acknowledges the fact that company did not directly ask about it.
Which clarification are you referring to?
Your Lordship, there was a clarification provided to us regarding the moot proposition.
Correct. Which para?
Your Lordship, the first clarification itself.
Okay. So as per your first clarification's answer, it clearly says that the company, Ishika's age was never asked by the company, neither was it actively concealed by Ishika. So that goes against you. If she actively conceals something, then we can even try to understand whether there is fraud. But in a case where there is no active concealment and neither did you ask her age, how can you say she's committing fraud?
Your Lordship,
To add to what my co-judge has just said, counsel, see, the experience that you mentioned that your VP was impressed about is referring to her technical experience in her area of expertise. Now, she cannot be expected to be well versed with the entire articles of association and MOA of the company or the policies. It was your job to inform her. The negligence is on your part here.
Your Lordship, the first submission of the counsel is that in the arguendo to the fraudulent misrepresentation, the counsel submits that there was a negligent misrepresentation also on her part. Also, in the advertisement provided before, it is, though the facts are quite silent whether the company's policies were mentioned there or not, but definitely it is highly unlikely to believe that the advertisement only provided the contact details of the company and the work it required and nothing about the people it wanted to inquire. So it was her, the company only made an invitation to offer. It was her who came with the offer. So she must have gone through the advertisement.
Counsel, are you trying to tell me that if any offer is put by your companies in newspapers henceforth, if criminals come and try to approach you to take a job under your company, You're going to give jobs without any background check?
Your Lordship, the company did conduct an interview for the same.
Not an interview, counsel. I'm talking of a background check. What if they have criminal records before the police and you're not bothered to conduct a background check? What kind of a company are you running? Or your client is running?
Your Lordship, the company has certain policies to keep a
What are
check
the
over.
policies? You are not even taking their basic ID cards as well.
Your Lordship, the council acknowledges that these documents were taken, but due to some negligence, they couldn't be rechecked.
Yes, that's enough to throw this case out of the window then.
Your
Last
Lordship,
10 minutes, what we are discussing here or what we are trying to ask is that whether you have done anything in the name of due diligence or not. If the
Your
answer
Lordship,
is
the
yes,
company, indeed, Your Lordship. So, Your Lordship, the company had provided her with rupees 1 lakh for developing the prototype. And then also the proposition mentions that
counsel,
the
the
interview.
question, am I audible or not?
Yes, Your Lordship, you're audible.
So simple question that I'm asking or what my coaches are trying to ask over the last 10 minutes, what you have done in the name of due diligence to satisfy us that the other party was negligent enough.
Your Lordship, the proposition clearly mentions that the company had followed. I beg your pardon, Your Lordship.
The policy world you have asked, I'm asking the question from that only, what you have done to implement that policy in the name of due diligence. Just to ensure
Your
that
Lordship,
the person to whom you are going to contact is major.
I beg your pardon, Your Lordship, you're not audible.
Sir, in the middle, your voice is not audible.
The question is same. What you have done in the name of due diligence, the policy which you have mentioned, what you have done to implement that policy as far as this contract is concerned.
Counsel, my co-judge's question is, what have you done to implement this policy? What steps have you as a company taken to implement the policy that you say?
Indeed, Your Lordship. So just as the moot proposition mentions that the company has conducted not just the interview, but the following contacts with Ishika in consonance with its policy. It is clearly mentioned in the moot proposition. The council would like you would take you to that. If you allow, I would read that.
Please do.
Indeed, Your Lordship.
What are you trying to read, counsel? We can't hear you.
Your Lordship, it says, am I audible?
Yeah.
Your Lordship, it says that the interview and the subsequent contact with Ishika will be reported in accordance with the company's policy. It is clearly mentioned in the 8th line.
Yes, we agree that there is a policy. What my co-judge asked is what you did according to that policy. There are laws in India, but do everyone follow the law? If they don't follow the law, we, the courts, take those cases and pass orders. So you as a company, what did you do? Is the question for you.
The question that will come into picture is that whether the party is competent to contract or not. That was the question which was required to be ascertained. And that is known as due diligence, which my co-judge asked. Very
Your
right
Lordship,
question. Then
indeed,
only further contracts and further procedural aspects will come into picture, whether you talk about interview or further process. I think if you are not having, you can say, enough grounds to satisfy this thing, this query specifically, then you can move to another issue.
Ms. Gargi, you can give an extension of 5 minutes.
Yes, sir.
3 minutes or 5 minutes, co-judges that we would like to give since it's the finals.
I think we can give her 5 minutes. Yes.
Yes. So
Yes,
Gargi, 5 minutes
I
extension. So counsel, a very rightful point pointed out by my co-judge, Dr. Ankit sir. I would like you to point out as to how and why this court should even look into a case where the contract is void ab initio.
Your Lordship, when the plaintiff entered into contract with the defendant and in arguendo to the fraudulent misrepresentation, the counsel feels that there has been negligent misrepresentation on part of the defendant.
Counsel, we are not bothered about negligent misrepresentation. You have been harping on that since the start of the rounds. We are asking you, how can this court consider a contract which is void ab initio? How can we even try to give you any relief even if you suffered certain damages when there is no contract?
Your Lordship, the plaintiff would still be entitled to equitable relief even in that situation.
Not when there is a void contract, counsel.
Your
What
Lordship,
is the ruling saying that we should even look into contracts which are void and unenforceable? Is there any relief that we can grant?
Your Lordship, from the case of
If the word
Khan
which we
Group,
have used, counsel, the very foundation of the equitable relief is that the person or the parties are supposed to come with clean hands. You are running such a big company and you are claiming over the last, you can say, several minutes that the another party was negligent enough. But despite of being so competent, you have not done anything which was required to make this particular case sound enough to be entertained in the first point itself. I hope you can move on another point if my other co-judges agree.
Yes, yes. Are there any other contentions you have, Speaker 1?
yes, Your Lordship.
Please move on to them. Counsel, there's a very interesting point in your written submissions regarding a sub-issue. You have stated that there were sincere efforts made by the company to ensure the legality of the contract. What were these efforts and what do you mean? How can you ensure a legality of a contract? If you could just... And also you say that there was a fresh contract being prepared after majority and that was also breached. So is it your case that Ishika is now a major and there was a second contract with Ishika and that also is breached? Is that your case?
Your Lordship, the agreement that was signed on 20th April, it had the new consideration because company took the risk and went on to making huge investments on the words of the defendant that this time they would receive the prototype on time.
No, that we are not bothered about that. We are on the point that are there two contracts involved? Are you filing? Is your case revolving around the breach of one contract or two contracts? That is one when she was a minor and one when she was a major.
No, Your Lordship, initially it was filed that the contract is voidable. The contract that was signed on 16th January, it became voidable. And even then...
No. Are there two contracts? Simple question. Yes or no?
Yes, Your Lordship. There was a fresh agreement made.
So there are two contracts. So as per your, where do we read this from the fact sheet that there was a second contract?
Your Lordship, the fresh agreement was made on 20th April and it is available. It is available on...
Available where, counsel?
in paragraph 4, 5th line, where it reads as she requested a week extension and on April 20th, both the parties agreed to submit the prototype by 5th of May.
So you're interpreting the agreement, agreeing to submit the prototype. So it's only a time extension. We cannot say that it is a second contract. It is only saying that a time extension was granted. How can it be understood or construed to say there is a second agreement?
Your Lordship, the company went on making huge investments, trusting the defendant's word. So that becomes the new concept.
What Thomas sir is trying to ask you is that whether that extension can be construed as a fresh contract. That is
Indeed,
what I believe the question is.
Indeed, Your Lordship, because there the plaintiff gets a new consideration because it is making taking a risk and making huge investments on the words of the defendant.
Counsel, the words, I'm just sharing it first since my co-judges also have to see it. It only speaks about since you request an extension, we agree to submit it. How do we use this term agreeing to say it is a second contract? I beg to, I fail to understand this interpretation. Yes, counsel, it's just saying that you sought for an extension, and since you had COVID, the company was gracious enough and they agreed to submit it. Will that constitute as a fresh agreement?
Indeed, Your Lordship. Again, the counsel submits the same, that the company on her words again, trusting her skills and experience, went on to making huge investments. That becomes the new consideration for the company.
Counsel, please move on to your aspect of why should compensation be granted. Are you dealing with that issue?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the time is up. Do you want me to extend the time?
Speaker 1, is the issue of compensation dealt by you or speaker 2?
Your Lordship, my second co-counsel is dealing with the same.
So my co-judges, shall we move on to speaker 2?
Yes, we can
Yes,
move.
please.
Yes, so speaker 2, you can start.
Indeed, Your Lordship, a very good evening to the Honorable Bench. This is Speaker 2. The Speaker 2 will be dealing with the second issue. The second issue provides with an alternative argument for the entitlement of damages, assuming that the contract is void ab initio. If the bench permits, the counsel would like to proceed with the second issue.
Yes, you're permitted, and in this issue, you need to answer the question that we asked speaker 1. That is, if there's a contract void ab initio that we cannot even look into a contract, can we grant you a compensation?
Indeed, we can grant restitution. However, the counsel
What is restitution in this case? How much money was given? Can you grant restitution of money?
No, Your Lordship, but the restoration is possible in the present case. Since
What you want to restore? That's the whole question. What are you seeking a restoration of?
the sum of rupees 1 lakh which was provided to the defendant for the development of the prototype.
Can we ask restoration of money, or can we ask restoration of any benefits accrued? So can money be said to be a benefit that she is enjoying? Can we grant an order for restoration of money? That's the whole question. Suppose it was a land granted for some particular purpose. You can ask for restoration by asking the land back. But this is money in situation where money has to be earned by this particular minor. How can we force a minor to give money?
Your Lordship, we cannot force her, but she has been unjustly enriched by the money. She has developed the prototype.
She has already ordered from China. She's waiting for it. She already paid the money there. Why don't you wait for the product to come, since anyway this contract is not a valid contract?
Your Lordship, the counsel has the plaintiff has already lost has incurred a lot of losses as a result of the delay, and does not have the faith in the defendant that she would comply with the agreement the second time.
Then can you ask us to ask her to give money when she's just a minor? Is there any precedence that the court had intervened in a void contract and asked for a minor to earn and pay money back?
Your Lordship,
When the Indian laws don't permit child labor?
No, Your Lordship. However, the court can ask the defendant to complete the prototype, and she can sell it in the market and then provide us with the money.
So again, you're telling to do labor. It can be skilled labor or it could be hard labor, right? How can we enforce something which is illegal under other laws? You're saying you are asking the minor to work and earn money. We'll do one thing. Why don't we ask the minor to get her educational qualifications and work after her 22 years she attains, and then return you your money? Will you all wait till then?
No, Your Lordship, but when we are enforcing this agreement at the present date, the defendant has already turned into a major, and this won't amount to child labor.
No, at the age of 18, we know in India, nobody is going to get a job. People don't get jobs at 25 as well, right?
Your
So at
Lordship,
where is the precedence? Is there precedence of this point? Is there any court either in India or in the world which has granted such reliefs?
just a second, Your Lordship.
You take 1 minute. Counsel, if you're researching for case laws now, I would like you to refrain.
No, Your Lordship. I'm not researching for the case laws. It was just in my brief, and I am to save time. I'm just searching it. I'm using the find tool.
Okay, okay.
Your Lordship, the council does not find any case laws where money was as such granted to the plaintiff. However, the council, on principles of equity, requests the court to
Has
hear
there been any kind of restoration? You're saying there's no judgment on money. Is there any judgment on the point of restoration of any benefit that accrued? Say, for instance, a minor was permitted to stay in a particular flat to particularly, complete this prototype. So we can ask her to vacate the flat. So is there precedence of even such a nature?
So I would like to ask TC126 speaker 1 to switch on her video because she's no
Yes,
longer.
yes. TC126 speaker 1 can switch on your video. Yes, speaker 2. Is there any judgment on restoration of any other?
No, Your Lordship, the council fails to acquire the same.
Okay. You can move on to your next arguments.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. So the council argues for the restoration of. The council humbly submits that the plaintiff must get compensatory damages, even if the contract is void within the meaning of Section 2, Clause G of the Indian Contract Act, on the basis of 3 grounds. Under Section 33, Clause 2, Subclause B of the Specific Relief Act, by applying the principle of unjust enrichment, and by the application of principles of equity and under the Section 65 of the India Contract Act.
What does Section 33 speak about? Could you please explain again?
Indeed, Your Lordship, Section 33, Clause B, which is in question here, deals with states that where a defendant successfully resists any suit on the grounds that the agreement sought to be enforced against him in the suit is void by the reason of his not having been competent to contract under Section 11 of the Indian Contract Act, the court may, if the defendant has received any benefit under the agreement from the other party, require him to restore so far as may be such benefit to the other party to the extent which he or his estate has benefited thereby.
Okay, and what is Section 65 of the Contract Act?
Your Lordship, Section 65 of the India Contract Act states that when an agreement is discovered to be void, or when a contract becomes void, any person who has received any advantage under such an agreement or contract is bound to restore it.
Is there any judgment under Section 65 that you would like to enlighten us with?
Your Lordship, firstly, in the case of Johri versus Draupadi, it was held that there.
Which court? Judgment of which court?
It is judgment of High Court of Madhya Pradesh.
And what were the facts of the case?
Your Lordship, the council is not aware of the facts of the case. However, the ratio is relevant to the present case.
Is that ratio decidently binding on us?
I have also one question. How you derive ratio without knowing facts? Without going through the facts, how you came to know what's the ratio? Like this is skill we also like to know.
No, Your Lordship, the council, while researching, knew about the facts in detail. However, the council did not believe that, considering time constraints and all, the council did not think that it would be required to state the facts in the present case, and does not
Counsel, I have a
resemble.
question.
Yes, Your Lordship.
You've mentioned Section 33 of the Indian Contract Act, you've spoken about enrichment and advantage.
No, Your Lordship.
Now, from what?
Specific Relief Act.
Let me-
Section 33 of this. Yes,
Oh,
yes,
I'm
Your
sorry.
Lordship.
Okay, Section 33 of the Specific Relief Act. So the question here is that the amount that has been paid to Ms. Ishika by the company is
Yes,
for
Your Lordship.
procurement of raw materials and parts from various countries so that she can prepare the prototype. Where is
Yes,
the
Your
question of
Lordship.
her being benefited or her being enriched? The way I see it, it's an advance money for procurement of raw materials and other parts for preparing this prototype. So where's her benefit?
Indeed, Your Lordship, I understand your concern. However, the defendant, upon receipt of the 1 lakh rupees, the defendant has still not given the delivery of the prototype. That means that the 1 lakh which was given to the defendant is still in possession with her, either in the form of money or in the form of the prototype which she was working on. So the defendant is not even sure whether she was really working on the prototype or not.
Okay, so can you go through the moot proposition paragraph number 2, please? Come to the last sentence.
Yes, Your Lordship. One second, Your Lordship.
Sure.
Yes, Your Lordship.
So can you read it for me?
So the last paragraph?
The last sentence, please. Paragraph 2nd, moot proposition.
Yes, Your Lordship. Ishika is told by the company that she must send a prototype of an app by April 21st, 2021, and that she will be paid rupees 1 lakh for doing so.
Yes. So what it says is that she has to develop a prototype and provide it to the company, and in return, she would be paid rupees 1 lakh. It does not specify that an advance payment has been made to her in form of any wages or salaries or development expenses. So
Indeed, Your
where's the
Lordship,
question of enrichment?
The council understands your concern. However, Your Lordship, reading this particular paragraph with the paragraph number 4 of the moot proposition, paragraph 4, line number 7 of the moot proposition states that in order to finish a prototype, she requests an additional rupees 40,000. Here, the use of the word additional makes us believe that an already some amount had already been provided by the
Council,
plaintiff
that's
company to
what
the
my
defendant.
co-judge is saying. All this money is only for procurement of the goods. It is not for any benefit that she's going to accrue. She's going to give some money, get a product. That's it. And then she'll use it for making whatever you want. How is that beneficial, or how can you say that it is a benefit that accrues to her? That's the main question.
Your Lordship, the council understands your concern. However,
No, we are not concerned at all. You please prove your case. We have no
Yes.
concerns at all.
Indeed, Your Lordship. In the present case, the council would like to brief a bit of the facts before proceeding with the argument.
No, we are aware of the facts
addressing
of
to your
this
query.
case. We are aware of the facts of this case. You just strictly answer to the query raised by the bench. How is paying money for a procurement of goods a benefit? Because we are only on the point of unjust enrichment. How does this prototype purchasing this product? Now you say you don't want the product. What will she do once she receives that products? It'll be no use to her, right?
Indeed, Your Lordship. However, this is what the defendant has told the company. This is no way. We do not have any proof that the products are even ordered or not. On a day before
What was the money
deadline,
given for?
to develop the prototype, Your Lordship.
To develop by procuring raw materials, by putting them together, by using skill, and then making the prototype, right? So she's
Yes,
in the
Your
first
Lordship.
stage of procuring, where the entire world is undergoing lockdown. They are reeling under COVID-19. There is doctrine of frustration. There is the pandemic. There's a force majeure clause. If we have to invoke all those clauses anyway, this contract is frustrated. Even if we consider, let us even assume it is valid contract. It is frustrated by leaps and bounds.
Indeed, Your Lordship, but the council believes that when the defendant was down with COVID-19, she only informed the plaintiff company on 20th of April, just a day before the submission of the
Council,
prototype.
are we going to lose humanity now? Are we going to compel people when they are on their dying beds to come and tell you I am going to die?
No,
Is
Your
that how we
Lordship,
behave as human
no,
beings?
no,
Without
Your
any
Lordship, the
kind of humanity towards people.
not all, Your Lordship. Considering those reasonable concerns, the company had already provided her an extension. What the council is trying to say here is that when she said, when she asked for an extension just a day before, even if she was down with COVID before, sometime before the deadline, she should have intimated that time only. And if she was down, like she came to know about her disease on right about the time of 20th April, then more or less her prototype would have been completed. Then the council.
Why did you grant an extension without a COVID positive report? Again, you didn't do due diligence. You keep acting according to your whims and fancies. You did not ask her to show up COVID positive report to see when she was COVID positive. Did you do that?
No, Your Lordship. However,
Enough. You keep blaming the defendant without showing what did you do. The case of the plaintiff should stand on its own, not on the faults of the defendant's case, right? You
yes, Your
yourself
Lordship.
have made so many errors. So on contributory negligence, I will say, not negligence. Contributory negligence, let's dismiss the suit.
I agree, Your Lordship. However,
You are agreeing to dismissal of the suit. Well,
no, Your Lordship, I am agreeing to there has been a negligence on the part of the plaintiff as well for not verifying the statements of the defendant. However, the situation of the pandemic was such that the defendant believed what the plaintiff believed what the defendant said. But this should not have been the case, and the plaintiff apologized for the
are there
same
any
as well.
other arguments you have, counsel?
No, Your Lordship, the council would just like to state that considering the principles of equity, the council would like.
Can a court look into equity in a contractual dispute? Are there cases where principles of equity were used in contractual disputes?
Your Lordship, the section 65 of the Indian Contract Act itself is based on the doctrine of equitable restitution. So equity is a principle which is basically involved in each. It is the essence of law, and I believe it is present in each and every case, whether it's of civil or criminal nature.
So you're saying all courts can look into equity. So on the grounds
Yes.
of equity, since you have been extremely negligent in your approach, let us grant 3 years time for the minor to, become a major, procure education, and then earn money and return your money. But I don't know whether we as the court can even direct a minor to do anything. Can we direct a mentally challenged child to do anything, counsel? Can we?
No, Your Counsel, no, Your Lordship. However,
so it will be like a useless judgment, right? It will be like a judgment passed against an insane person, and he or she will not be able to follow our judgment. So why do you want such a judgment? Even if we allow this case and direct the minor to give you money, minor doesn't have money, what are you going to do?
Your Lordship, the defendant is a well-known computer wizard with who's very talented.
The richest, the talented, most talented person are the most poor people. Yes?
Your
Charlie Chaplin died of starvation despite being so famous. So talent has no role with money. You tell us, how do we enforce this judgment? What will you do with a judgment of asking 2.5 lakhs?
I think the company is already.
Your Lordship, the council seeks
No, my
to.
co-judge is speaking something. 1 minute.
I was wondering actually, the company is already impressed enough with the talent, so they have to grant that much time. So the person is supposed to be competent and return back the money.
Extension of 1 minute, Gargi.
Your Lordship, I failed to understand your question. Could you please repeat it once
I
more?
have not asked anything. I simply said the company was since the beginning itself was very much impressed
Yes, Your
with this
Lordship.
wizard, the word which you have used. So you are supposed to give that much time period.
So Your Lordship,
You have to
Your
agree
Lordship,
with
the council already did, the defendant already, the plaintiff already did a mistake once while trusting on her capabilities and not checking with the facts merely because the
about
council
it,
we'll-
Anna.
believed,
You
the
have said,
plaintiff believed.
you yourself have said very famous. So if you will not take care of the talent, who will take care?
Your
You
Lord,
have to give opportunity to talented
Your
people.
Lordship, we gave the opportunity.
Let us dispose this suit by directing the, we'll look into the minority or majority aspect of the defendant and take an affidavit on record to close the prototype within the time that the defendant while they argue. We'll give them time by looking into whether they are a major or a minor and grant and grant them further time and close this particular case, dispose it off. Is that fine, counsel? Speaker 2. Gargi, extension of 2 minutes. Yes, speaker 2. Because we cannot direct him or her to give you money because that is not in our powers. We can ask her to complete the work that she's taken.
In that case, the council would plead for that only.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, speaker 2.
Thank you.
I
Thank you,
do.
Lordship.
My co-judges, if they have any queries to you before we proceed to respondents. Okay. We can start from respondent. Speaker 1.
Am I audible, Your Lordship?
Yes, very well.
All right.
Speaker
Greetings to
1,
the
team code.
100.
Okay, right.
Greetings to the Lordships. The Council seeks permission to collectively refer to the bench as Lordships.
Call us sirs also is fine. You
All right,
don't
much
call us
obliged to you,
lordships
Lordship.
also is fine. Proceed.
Much obliged. Your Lordship, the Council, as Council 1 from the side of Ishika, will be addressing the first and the third issue in the moot proposition, which pertains to the contract being void ab initio and the request for compensation, respectively. The Council will be taking 20 minutes and the co-counsel will be taking 15 minutes, and we would collectively reserve 5 minutes for sir rebuttals.
Counsel,
If-
even before we move on to any issue, what is your point on jurisdiction? Is this case pending before the junior civil judge, the senior civil judge, the district court, or the high court? What is your answer on that?
Your Lordship, this case is filed in the Civil Court of Mante in Delhi, and Section 9 of the CPC grants them the jurisdiction to do so, to file this case in this
What does
court,
Section
since
9
it is
read?
not barred.
What does Section 9 read, counsel?
Just a second, Your Lordship.
The court shall have jurisdiction to try all suits of a civil nature, excepting suits which are barred expressly or impliedly. Are you aware of Section 15?
Section 15 states that the cases shall be applied to the lowest court.
Lowest
shall first
court.
be-
Yes. So you tell me
Absolutely.
which court in the rung of the judiciary are we in? Is this the junior civil judge, the senior civil judge, or the district court?
Your Lordship, this is the district court that we are in.
Okay. So then please give me the division of the pecuniary jurisdiction of these three courts.
Your Lordship, the council at this point of time knows the jurisdiction of the junior civil judge, and
What
that
is that?
about 25,000 rupees. And
What
this
are you
case-
basing? You're basing your jurisdiction from which law? Your pecuniary jurisdiction?
This is given under the CPC.
Pecuniary jurisdiction of the junior civil judge is there in the CPC?
Yes, Your Lordship.
Please provide the section.
Your Lordship, the council is not aware of the section as of now, but we'll get back to you on this point later on.
Okay. Please proceed.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. Lordship, the council would like to ask if the Lordship is well versed with the facts of the case, and thus the council solicits permission to begin.
Please begin.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. So Black's Law Dictionary defines void as having no legal force or binding effect.
No, we know
which-
definition of void and voidable. We are asking you, how is this a agreement not voidable?
This agreement is void ab initio, Your Lordships, and for the sake of convenience, the Council has divided all the issues into the following three contentions. Firstly, that Ishika is not competent to contract, being a minor, and the contract is thus void ab initio. Secondly, that ratification and estoppel are also not allowed upon reaching the age of majority. And thirdly, that Ishika is liable to get compensation from IROL for the money she invested for the prototype. The Council solicits permission to begin with the first contention.
Permissions are granted in all your contentions. Please don't seek individually. Please continue to argue.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. So beginning with the first contention, it is humbly submitted that the existing contract between the defendant and the company IROL is void ab initio under the provision of Section 10 and Section 11 of the Indian Contract Act 1872. Now, Section 10 clearly requires that the parties to a contract must be competent to contract. And as per the
Council,
provisions
what are the case laws which state that the contract with the minor is void ab initio and not void? How do we differentiate between a contract being void and a contract being void ab initio?
Yes, Your Lordship. So here the Council would like to state the case of Mori Bibi versus Dharmodas Ghosh, where it was held that if the
Judgment of
agreement,
which court?
it was a judgment of Calcutta High Court.
Okay.
If it was held that if the agreement is entered,
Facts. What are the facts of the case?
in this case, there was a minor who mortgaged his property to secure a loan of a certain sum from a moneylender. Now, the money that was actually provided was less than the stipulated sum, and the plaintiff, that is the minor, then sued the defendant on the charge that this contract is void ab initio and cannot be enforced against a minor. And it was held by the court that if the agreement entered into between a major person, being the petitioner, and the minor being the respondent, then in this, the doctrine of restitution will not be applied, as this is void ab initio. This was held in the case of Mori Bibi versus Dharmodas Ghosh.
So basically, if a contract is entered, it will be void from the inception itself, is what you believe.
Yes, absolutely, Your Lordship. That is what we...
But what about duties of the right to speak? Suppose you are given the duty to speak and you choose not to speak, then we can impliedly accept a silence also amounts to acceptance. So you were silent of the fact that you were a minor, knowing fully well that you cannot enter into a contract. Why did you do that?
Your Lordship, it is clearly stated in the clarifications that there was no active concealment on the part of Ishika. And she was not duty bound to read the contract because she, as a minor, cannot be expected to prudently understand all the provisions of the contract. So in this case, it was very clear that it was the duty of the company to inquire from Ishika, which they also failed to do, as is clearly stated in the clarification.
Counsel,
They never asked.
Your case cannot rely on the latches of the plaintiff's case. You stick to your case. You tell us, how is your case a valid case?
Your Lordship, we are maintaining that this case is void ab initio, and thus there is no breach of contract which the plaintiffs have argued for.
But the plaintiffs very vehemently have argued on the point that you have received the advance. Let us do one thing. You have received advance money. China products have failed to be delivered to you. You seek for a refund from them and return the money to these people.
Your Lordship, the moot proposition is silent on the fact what amount of money was paid.
Okay,
So
whatever amount. Let us assume it is 1 rupee or 1 crore. Whatever be the amount received by you in your bank or by cash, you return it to the plaintiff. What is the trouble?
Your Lordship, a minor cannot be asked to restore the benefits that have been granted to him. This
Why
is
so?
not.
May I interrupt? Sorry to interrupt you. I have some questions for you. For instance, you say your client is a minor and she's not aware of the contract, but she goes around doing this with everyone, right? She goes to China, procure materials. So if she is capable of doing that, what do you think about this scenario? You're saying that she's not aware of the contractual law and all those things. That seems to be a pattern, right?
Your Lordship, there is a distinction between intelligence, which any person of any age can be extremely intelligent and can be a gifted person. But that does not mean that they can validly enter into a contract which goes against Section 11 of the Indian Contract Act. So no matter the intelligence of Ishika, she cannot supersede the law and she cannot be expected as a minor, as is clearly defined under Section 3 of the Majority Act, that she cannot be competent to contract until she reaches the age of 18. And thus it cannot be held that Ishika should be aware of every single fact of the entering into a contract, every single legality should be looked into by her. This is the responsibility of the company who were entering into a contract to inquire whether she was a minor at the time or not.
Why you have asked to you can say do this interview through telephone only? What was the reason?
Your Lordship, there was COVID-19 subsisting in the country, and therefore she requested that the interview be held by phone only. There was no other fraudulent intention on the part of Ishika.
We are not asking fraudulent or not. We are
I'm
asking why
sorry, Your Lord.
emphasis was given. Why emphasis was given on telephonic conversation?
Emphasis was not given. She just requested this and she was granted this. There was no fight between the company and Ishika as to this fact. If they had requested, perhaps she would have gone to a physical interview, but the moot proposition again is silent on this particular fact. So we cannot assume.
Counsel, you keep saying that contract with a minor is void, but is an agreement to enter into a contract to form a partnership firm, is it a contract?
Your Lordship, a minor can
Answer
be
the
granted
question first. Is an agreement to form a partnership firm, is that agreement a contract?
by a minor.
I just asked a question without involving a minor. You answer that. Two people two people agree to form a partnership firm. They enter into an agreement. Is it a contract?
Yes, that is a valid contract. If it is not, yes, if it is done by the consent of both the parties.
Now, with the consent of the partners, a minor also can be admitted to the benefit of a partnership.
Absolutely, Your Lordship, but
So
that his
there
role
is
is
no
only limited.
blanket. So there is no blanket ban that you cannot enter into a contract with a minor one. The second thing is there is the Indian Apprentice Act.
Yes, Your
Under the
Lordship.
Indian Apprentices Act 1850, so you can enter into the contract. We can try to redraft this contract with the guardian involved here
Your Lordship,
and then grant validity.
Your Lordship, I would like to first address the issue of the Partnership Act. Even though a minor can definitely be admitted to the benefits of the partnership, he cannot be asked to cover for any losses or to compensate personally for any of the losses that have been accrued during the course of such a partnership. So even though that contract is valid, but it is only valid to the extent that it benefits the minor. Even in the case of the Apprentices Act, it is only valid if it is entered for the benefit of the minor and on behalf of her by someone, some guardian, someone major. Now, in this present case, there was no major involved. There was only Ishika who signed the contract herself. So we cannot logically conclude that Apprentices Act can be applied to this case at hand.
Okay. What about the aspect that suppose we give a what about the aspect where we give a house on rent to the minor for his living and he continues to study over there? Is he entitled to pay for the rent, or we'll say that no, he does not need to pay rent there as well?
Your Lordship, the minor can only reimburse to the person providing the benefit to him if such a benefit is a necessity. And in this present case, since it is a necessity, he can compensate. But again, he will not be asked to compensate in the form of money, but only the property of the minor shall be accountable to the person supplying such a benefit.
Because there was a judgment of the Madhya Pradesh High Court on this point where if a minor is living in a particular place, then he is entitled to pay the rent. So if there was an exception carved out in this judgment of our corresponding High Court, why even in your case, because again a rental agreement is again a lease deed is again a contract. If that is also a void ab initio and the court is asking to repay the rent or pay the rent, we can utilize that ratio there and hold the same here.
Your Lordship, there's a very clear distinction between that case and this one, and that is that in that there was necessaries that were being provided to the minor. In this case, there are no necessaries to provided to the minor.
Why do we
This was-
distinguish? Why do we distinguish between a necessity and something which is not? Or is there some rule which says necessities shall be paid by the minor himself?
The necessities shall be paid by the person who is receiving such necessities. And this is laid down in the Indian Contract Act that a minor is not liable.
Section?
However, just a second, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, the council is unable to find the section. Can I get
Okay.
that?
No worries. We shall adjourn this case to tomorrow. Will you come back?
Your Lordship, I have a few arguments. If you would allow me to proceed, I would.
Yes, please. You're
Much
here only
obliged.
to argue.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. So this contention that I was referring to was explained under Raja Rani versus Premadeep, where it was clearly stated that under Section 11, the plaintiff was definitely not competent to enter into a contract, and therefore her promise would not be enforceable against her. Therefore, the plaintiff's promise in this case to serve supplies absolutely no consideration, and the contract was void ab initio. This shows that ratification cannot be done under a void agreement. Thus, it is humbly submitted to the Honorable Court that the contract entered into by Ishika while she was a minor cannot be ratified by her after attaining the age of majority, and hence it remains void. Further, the plaintiff's counsels argued that there were two contracts in existence. Now, the first contract was void ab initio, and the second contract, which they alleged was entered into after Ishika attained the age of majority, was also not a valid contract, and the council would like to submit reasons as to the same. Now, the agreement between Ishika and the company to deliver the prototype on 5th of May 2021, after she had reached the age of majority, can also not be held to be a valid
Counsel,
contract.
could you distinguish to us the difference between restitution and compensation?
Your Lordship, restitution is mentioned under Section 65 of the Indian Contract Act, and it states that under a void agreement or an agreement which is voidable, that any kind of benefit that has been received by any person, that person shall be liable to restore such a benefit. Compensation, on the other hand, can be given in any case. It does not have to be void, or it does not have to be void ab initio.
Okay, proceed.
Much obliged, Your Lordship. So the agreement acceptance to be legally enforceable must be absolute and unqualified. This is provided under Section 7 of the Indian Contract Act, which states that in order to turn an offer into an agreement, the acceptance to the offer must be absolute and unqualified. Now, the logic behind this is that the acceptance to the offer must be absolute and it cannot result into a counter offer.
Counsel, we understand that this is void ab initio. There was no consensus added, and we are agreeing on that. What do we do now?
Your Lordship, I would like to humbly submit to the Honorable Court now that Ishika is liable to get compensation from IROL for the money she invested to fulfill the conditions of the prototype.
Pele, you do not complete your work. Now you ask compensation. You tell me, if you are liable to receive compensation in a suit for recovery filed by the plaintiff, where has the court granted a relief if you have not filed a counterclaim?
I will elaborate upon that right now. So the company is required to compensate Ishika for the hardware pieces.
No. You don't tell us why you are asking compensation. We are on a point before that. How in a suit filed by the plaintiff can the defendant ask for compensation?
Your Lordship, compensation.
You file a separate suit for compensation. Why are you asking compensation in this case?
Your Lordship, compensation can be received on the grounds of Section 65, which is applicable to a minor.
In which case, if
In the
it
case
is,
of Raja Rani versus Prem Adib,
was it filed, was it where the defendant asked for compensation or where the plaintiff asked for compensation in Raja Rani's case?
it was the plaintiff who asked for
Exactly. So
compensation.
you cannot ask for compensation when you're the defendant. You can't seek relief except dismissal of the case. When you're filing a case, you ask your reliefs before the court when you file a case, or if you file a counterclaim. You cannot ask such reliefs being the defendant. You do not have the role. If there is any such precedence, please enlighten us.
Your Lordship, this was the counterclaim that the council was referring to, as has been mentioned in the
Fact
moot
sheet
proposition.
is silent. There is nothing on counterclaim in the fact sheet. Is there?
No, I was referring to the counterclaim referred to in the moot memorial.
Please refer to your moot memorial. Where do you say that you have sought for a counterclaim? Which paragraph?
Absolutely, Your Lordship. This is the third issue in the moot proposition.
There is no usage of the word counterclaim in your entire memorial.
Your Lordship, it can be gauged from the language that we are seeking compensation from the
Civil
company.
law
and
requires specific pleadings. When you do not specifically plead, you cannot claim. If you say there is a counterclaim, show me in your pleadings. Is it there, the word counterclaim?
the word is absent from our pleadings,
Okay.
Your Lordship.
If it is absent, you tell me what is the provision of law which says counterclaims can be filed?
Your Lordship, the council pleads ignorance.
Okay. And at the stage of final hearing, can the defendant claim counterclaim? When trial, evidence, everything is over, can you seek counterclaim at this stage?
Your Lordship, it must be mentioned by the respondents or the defendants in the beginning itself that they are seeking a counterclaim.
So you're
And
barred. There are Supreme Court judgments also which say that only till the date of framing issues, you can as a defendants file or raise a claim for a counterclaim. Post that you cannot raise such claims. Recent judgment in 2018.
I accept that back, Your Lordship.
So
I
please proceed
apologize.
to your other issues. Any other arguments if you have?
Yes, Your Lordship. My co-counsel will be dealing with the point of compensation and why Ishika is not liable to pay any compensation to the company when the agreement is void ab initio. So if you would allow her to begin with her contentions.
Counsel, before that, since you have some time, you keep your whole issue is just saying that whether Ishika is entitled to compensation. What is your reasoning if we want, as the court, we want to know what is the reasoning that you want compensation when you have failed to deliver?
Absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt, but the time is up.
How many minutes, Gargi, is
time is
given?
up, sir.
Total, how many minutes were given?
Total
20
is
minutes.
20 minutes, sir.
Just one more minute to answer this query.
Yes, sir.
All right, Your Lordship, much obliged. So in the case of Raja Rani versus Prem Adib, it was clearly held that the rights which a minor may gain under Section 70 of the Indian Contract Act are
No.
rights.
I'm asking you, what is the loss that you face that you want compensation in this case? You don't bring
The
any case
loss
to me.
that we faced was that Ishika ordered certain hardware pieces from China. And for the payment that she made for that hardware, we seek compensation from the company.
Did you, once you receive that, you can sell that prototype in the market in India to someone else?
Your Lordship, the contract by the company must have ensured that such a provision is barred from happening. So this is not
Contract
some...
only is void, you have argued. Then the
Yes,
question
Your
of protecting future, does it arise from that contract?
Your Lordship, but Ishika cannot be expected to perform any of the obligations under that contract, even if she has received certain benefits, which she has clearly not, which my co-counsel will elaborate further. But even if she had received certain benefits, she would still not be liable to compensate.
If my co-judges have no queries, should we proceed to speaker 2? I think Kushag sir, you have any query?
Sir, I think everything has been covered by the council, so I think we can proceed.
Yes. Speaker 2, you can start.
May it please the court, this is the counsel too from the side of the respondents. If your lordship are well versed with the first and third arguments, the counsel shall begin with the second issue.
Counsel, I don't think as judges, we need to be well versed with your arguments, right?
No, if you
We-
don't have any queries, Your Lordship.
Yes, yes, all queries asked to speaker one. Please proceed.
Much obliged. The issue council shall be dealing with is that the respondents are not liable to compensate the company IROL for the loss they have incurred. It is humbly submitted to the Honorable Court that the respondents are not liable to compensate the company IROL. The council shall be dealing with Section 65 of the Indian Contracts Act to prove the argument. Section 65 of Indian Contracts Act says that one who has received an advantage shall restore the same to another person. However, in the present case, no such advantage was received by Ishika.
What about the money?
Your Lordship, the money that was given was for the formation of prototype. It was not an advantage. It was not a salary that was given to her.
Did you ask for a salary? We don't know how much money you're spending from the income on from that in prototype. How much is the money you're spending on your skill for your services that you're charging them? We do not know that. So stating that you have not received anything is something we cannot accept.
Your Lordship, the facts are silent whether she has received anything or not.
No, the fact sheet clearly says, in addition, she asked for 40,000. When you say in addition, she asked for 40,000, it means she received some money. Are you
Your
saying she
Lord-
never received any money?
Your Lordship, that could be an additional demand.
How did she order those materials from China, from her own pocket money?
Your Lordship, she ordered the money from her own pocket money. That's why she's claiming rupees
So
40,000.
fact sheet is silent. That doesn't mean you manipulate in your favor.
Your Lordship, when we order something, it is presumed that we give the money from our pocket only.
Is it? I don't know. In all our contracts, there's something called as advance to be paid mandatorily. Why do we have such clauses? Are you trying to tell me in all your contracts where the governments have these contracts and the railways has contracts, you expect the contractor to pay money to procure goods? They will go bankrupt.
Your Lordship, in the mood proposition that was provided to us, the agreement was not given. In fact, the proposition is silent whether she has been given any payment or not. However, if we take into the consideration the argument, whatever you say, that she has been given the payment, still she can't be held liable
Why?
because the money is not traceable according to equitable doctrine of restitution.
Please explain that doctrine to us.
Yes, Your Lordship. Justice. If a minor obtains property or goods by misrepresenting her age, he can be compelled to restore it, but only so long as the same is traceable in his possession. This is known as equitable doctrine of restitution. It is
Counsel,
based,
you're relying on section 65 to say that you're not bound to pay it, right?
Your Lordship, that is when we assume that she has not been given any payment.
I would like you to see, please read the highlighted portion.
To make when an agreement is discovered to be void or when a contract becomes void, any person who has received any advantage under such agreement or contract is bound to restore it or to make compensation for it to the another person from whom he received it. Your Lordship,
Yes, now when you have received something, your section 65 itself, see what is the clause here? When it is void, if there is any advantage received, you are bound to restore it, right? Three terms: void, receipt of advantage, and restoring it. All three satisfying in your case conditions. So you restore it, we'll order that. You restore the money you paid, they paid you.
your Lordship, cash is not considered as a
Where do we say that cash? If cash is not an advantage, counsel, nobody will be earning nowadays. All of us will just sit at home.
Your
Yes, why?
Lordship, apologies.
You tell us, where does it say money is not an advantage?
Yes, Your Lordship. Just a second.
I'm very sure my brother judges also believe that money is a very, very good incentive. Otherwise, none of us will be sitting on the bench also. Neither you lawyers will fight for your clients if they don't pay you your money and your fees.
Your Lordship, it was held in Khankul versus Lakha Singh. And
Which court?
your Lordship, Lahore High Court.
Are we bound by the decision of another court now?
No, your Lordship.
Or especially a country we are very concerned about.
No, your Lordship is just a persuasive value.
Yes, what does it say?
It says that the doctrine will not apply where the minor has obtained cash instead of goods.
Is there any judgment which relied on this judgment subsequently in any of the courts in India?
Your Lordship, this was the landmark case. I don't have the judgments that we have relied upon, but
Also, you should understand one thing. If a judgment is said to be landmark, it would have been relied time and again.
Yes,
That
your
is why
Lordship, I don't have the list of cases that have relied upon them.
You
but-
believe Indian courts have relied on it.
Yes, your Lordship, when I was researching, I came across various judgments.
We
However,
trust your
they-
competence. Please proceed. What were
Miss
the-
Counsel, I'm so sorry to interrupt, Thomas, sir. Miss Counsel, the moot proposition is silent whether the form of payment was cash or through a bank transfer or check. So you cannot simply assume that cash amount has been paid to her. The term cash denotes to hard transfer of money, of currency notes, right? This could very well be a wire transfer or a bank transfer or an NEFT. So I don't think this is applicable here.
Your Lordship, there's a difference between cash and goods. Cash pertains to money and goods pertains to anything like property or something else. So that is of the same kind. Like whether you give the cash or whether you transfer the payment, it's of the same type.
No, so you're trying to say that a bank transfer would not be construed as cash, or an NEFT payment would not be construed as cash. Is that what your argument is?
Your Lordship, that will be construed as cash, since it comes under the category of money only. And
Okay.
cash involves money.
So cash is restricted to all forms of monetary exchanges. That's what you're trying to say. Anything which is not a property, which is not a good, which is not a commodity would fall under the purview of cash.
Yes, Your Lordship.
Okay. Please proceed.
Your Lordship, the major argument of the council is that, first of all, the
Counsel, but what is the amount that you have received in this case?
Your Lordship, we haven't received any amount. They were supposed to pay the amount. However, whatever additionally, the 40,000 that is considered, the council considers it to be an additional demand.
Okay, let us assume they paid you, since you're asking 40,000, they would have definitely paid you minimum of 20,000. Are you aware of section 269 SS of the Income Tax Act?
Your Lordship, Income Tax Act was not applicable to the,
No, income tax is applicable to money transactions. I think so. I don't know if they have been waived from the ambit. You please tell me.
No, not that, Your Lordship. The entire proposition was based upon law of contracts.
Yes, so let me tell you, 269 SS says that no payment should above 20,000 rupees should be made in cash. So now you say that you have received amounts more than 20,000. So when you say it's about 20,000, like rightly my co-judges pointed, and keeping in view that plaintiff is such a huge company, they would have definitely paid it by check or DD or an NFT transaction, NEFT transaction. Now you tell me, how is section 65 not applicable? Because your case law was on cash.
Your Lordship, it's just a mere assumption that they would have transferred something more than 20,000. It was never mentioned in the moot proposition.
Why would you ask for an additional 40,000?
Your
You could have
Lordship,
asked only
that
5
she has
rupees.
ordered.
Yes.
That for the goods that she has ordered from China, and even if we take into consideration the fact that they would have given certain amount to her beforehand, that she has used for making the prototype. And as far as the consideration whether
If
she
I
has
may stop you for a moment, petitioner counsels, both of you all, do you all know how much money has been paid to the defendants? Plaintiff speaker 1, speaker 2, any amount? you're
Indeed,
claiming?
Your Lordship, an amount of rupees 1 lakh has been paid to the defendant.
And where do you read this from?
From the paragraph number 2, read with paragraph number 4 of the moot proposition.
Please read para 2, para 4 for us. Para 2 and 4. Para 2 says she will be paid 1 lakh for doing so. So it's April 21st. Yes, speaker 2 of TC 100. Please refute this particular line.
Your Lordship, it is written that she must send a prototype. She has not sent the prototype. She has demanded extension.
Okay, conceded. Any next issue or arguments if you have?
Your Lordship, this was the major argument regarding the that the company was not liable to compensate.
Okay. So your only
Mm.
argument is since nothing was given, so you don't want to compensate. You didn't receive any benefit. That's what I
Your
understood.
Lordship, either way we take it to the consideration, Ishika is not liable to compensate the company because in another case the money is not traceable because she has used that in making the prototype, and it has been clearly mentioned in the moot proposition that she had started the work on it. So she has used that in making the prototype, and she additionally ordered the goods for completion, and for that she's demanded an additional payment of rupees 40,000.
My co-judge, Mr. Kushagra, has a question for you.
See, Ms. Counsel, what I gather from your argument is that what you're saying is that Ishika has invested some time and money into making a prototype, and she has ordered goods from China, which has taken more amount. Now you want the company to make an additional payment for it. Tomorrow, when the prototype is complete, she'll sell it in the market, get a patent, be enriched by it. So the company would be facing losses at both the ends. She would be enriched by not only by the company in form of compensation or in form of a refusal to return the amount that has been transferred to her, as well as the market price of the prototype route or the patent cost or whatever that she gets in her benefit. So how is this equitable?
Your Lordship, the prototype that she has made is according to certain specifications that were laid by the company. She cannot sell them into the market because probably people won't accept it because it is as per the terms and conditions of the company. Whatever whatever they expected from her, she has made. So we cannot say that the market will accept that thing.
But counsel, whatever are raw materials that are being used, they can be removed and used for producing something else. Like for instance, if for manufacturing of one printer, if you're using plastic, you can use the same plastic and say make something else also, right? So whatever are the raw materials that you're procuring for this prototype, you can very well use it for something else and sell it.
Your Lordship, Ishika never thought about that. Her major aim was completion of the contract.
She's smart. She's a whiz kid. That is what they contend.
Your Lordship, still she never took into consideration that thing, and it's nowhere mentioned that she thought about doing so. There was nothing fraudulent on her part. She was in good faith. She entered into the contract with the company, and she just wanted to complete the contract.
You're pleading now that she entered into a valid contract, is it? She want to complete the contract, is it?
Your Lordship, she wanted to complete the contract, but since additional 40,000 is not being paid by the company, she cannot render losses on her part. She has no option left. She has she cannot complete that prototype.
See, counsel, you want to have the cake and eat it as well. You know, it's not possible. Either you plead the contract as void, and you're now pleading that you want some benefit out of the contract. You have to make up your mind. What do you want?
Your Lordship, the contract is void ab initio. She's demanding the money for the losses that she has incurred on her part. That is by ordering the equipments from China. So she was demanding rupees 40,000 for that, and that was not given by the company.
Sir, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay, proceed. We will come back to you on this.
Your Lordship, the council rests the case. This is
Do you have any other issue? Yeah, I was told that you're dealing with 2 issues.
Your Lordship, the speaker 1 was supposed to deal with the 2 issues. The council was dealing with only 1 issue.
Okay, please move on to your prayer.
Yes, Your Lordship.
Counsel, what is your prayer?
Wherefore, in light of the question presented, arguments advanced, and authorities cited, The complainant claiming compensation on part of the respondent prays to this honorable court to pass the following order. Ishika was minor at the time of contract. Thus,
Counsel, in a recovery suit, why are you asking to state that it was not a competent contract? How is that even a relief? In a suit for recovery, you only pray for a dismissal. Why would you ask for holding the contract void? Can we pass such reliefs in a recovery suit?
Your Lordship, until and unless it is proved that the contract is void, how
No,
can
what is their prayer? Their prayer is only to give money. How can your prayer be to declare that the contract is not void or it is void? You only say that either you receive money, or you don't receive money. Whether we as judges will see whether the contract is void or not void, and on basis of that reasoning, we will grant the relief. The relief will not be to declare the contract as void, right?
Yes, Your Lordship, the counsel pleads apology.
Okay. So what can your prayer be? Rephrase your prayer.
She is not entitled to pay compensation, however, is entitled to get the same from IROL for the money invested by her.
Okay, good. Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
speakers. There's a reply argument, I think, from petitioners.
Yes, Your Lordship. The council has the argument.
Since we are given a lot of extensions, only 30 seconds. Speaker 2.
In Your Lordship, the council's claim that that Ishika was not that she cannot be expected to read the policy of the company and understand the terms and conditions of the contract is something which the council does not sustain, because she was already a 17-year-old kid who was just 1 year short of being major. I mean, I do not think that the council does not believe that why 1 year of difference in turning a major would affect how much it would affect the intelligence of the defendant to understand the terms and obligations of her as per the policy of the contract.
Thank you, counsel. Respondent, speaker.
Where was it explicitly mentioned in the contract that it is on the basis of that the petitioner have the policy of not contracting with the minor, and no such annexure was provided by the company? It was just a guideline. Where was it in the contract?
Sorry to interrupt, but even her time is over.
Yes, thank you. Yes, my co-judges, I think for rebuttal, we do not need to extend their time, I think. So. We granted a lot of.
Agree.
Yes. So we are done then. Yes, the organizers can tell us how to proceed next.
If they're done with their rebuttals, then.
Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, Arjun, you are.
Yes, sir. So we'll put the participants in the waiting room, and then we can have the judges for the discussion.